What's up guys, welcome to my next DIY bike project. I'm Jonas and today it's time to put some paint on the frame. Let's go! Okay, so in this video I will lay down the primer on the aluminum frame, I will paint it, and then I will make logos, graphics, and I will put a really nice gloss clear coat all over the frame. So stay with me. Okay, so short recap. The commuter bike is up for a good renovation. In my first video I stripped the whole paint and I prepared it for painting. If you haven't seen it, check it out in the link. The paint was blasted off with an angle grinder and some paint stripper. It's now polished and ready for the paint booth. So stay with me and we will soon spray along. But before I put the spray mask on, I will go through the paints I will use in this film. I will start out with Spray Max 2K Wash Primer, and according to the manufacturer, it has very good adhesion, excellent anti-corrosion protection, in particular on aluminum, fast drying, can be painted over with all standard 1K and 2K acrylic fillers. I will then continue with this Montana Gold Gray as a sort of the main color of the frame. It's called Wool. I will continue with this Pure Orange for graphics and logos. I will use this Manila Green, this Sand, and I will finally use this brown, I think it's chalk brown or pure brown, I don't know. And then I will top this with also a 2K Spray Max gloss clear coat. 2K means that it's a two-component system. That means that we have the color itself and we have a hardener in it that needs to be made. This one is a little bit more expensive than a regular primer. This one is about 20 euros and it sticks really good. I think it's gonna be really nice. So, okay, let's hit the paint booth. Before we start, we have to clean the frame properly. We want to get rid of any dust or, more importantly, any grease from fingers, since this will cause a really bad adhesion. So I start out with a washing gasoline, also called white spirit, to get all the grease removed. And then I use the Rust-Oleum pre-paint cleaner to get a final clean surface to paint. For this I use a clean rag. I repeat this cleaning before each layer throughout the whole process. And then of course safety first, spray mask and gloves. If the temperature in your garage or wherever you are is below 20 degrees centigrade, the color might get a bit thick and it won't spray as even. I therefore place the can in a bucket of warm water for around 20 minutes before I start to paint. That will reduce the viscosity and make the color easier to apply. To mix the hardener with the color in the can, you remove the little red cap on the top, hold it for a couple of seconds and then shake it for a couple of minutes. Start at the front of the frame and I work my way backwards with the first thin layer of color. Once I have covered the whole frame, I go back and fill it in and get a good coverage. In that way I can avoid color runs and get a nice even layer of color. Also, once the color is dry, it's easier to see any spots that need to be filled in. Getting color all over the frame is of course important, but it's very hard. The inside of the seat stays and the chain stays, and under the top tube are areas that are easy to miss out. And as you can see, I use a torch to scan the frame from any miss-outs. And the first layer of primer is done. Before I give it a second layer, I let it dry for approximately 24 hours and then I gently sand the whole frame with 800 grit wet sandpaper. Now you want to be careful and not to strip the paint off. You just want to give it a smooth surface with good adhesion. I also use gloves, both to avoid tearing down the skin on my hands as well as avoid of getting greasy fingerprints all over the frame. Afterwards, I wipe off all the water and the remains from the color. Okay, so the frame is sanded and it's ready for another shot of primer. Let's hit the paint booth. Finishing off with the torch. I finished the second layer of primer late in the evening, so I was unable to apply the first layer of main color at the time. But if you have the possibility, wet on wet technique works fine here. That means that you let the primer dry for at most 10 to 15 minutes and then you apply the color. That increases the bond between the primer and the color. It's now time for the main color, the Montana Gold Wall Gray. Since I will use other colors down at the dropouts and up at the head tube, I will not be very accurate at these parts. In fact, I won't spray them at all. I let it dry for 5 to 10 minutes and then I give it a second shot of color. Okay, so we have the primer and we have our main color, the gray. And now it's time to mask because it's time for the second color, the orange. I will do this in separate turns because we will put layers on layers. So here is the frame and here is the fork, and this is what we're gonna work with today. To get nice straight lines around the tubes, I will share a little hack. I will use regular printing paper, masking tape, and this 3M fine line masking tape. I simply use the paper and wrap it around the tubes. Okay, nice. I got the frame masked up, and I'm gonna do the same thing to the chain stays and to the seat stays, and then we're good to go. Okay, so the frame is prepped and ready to go. We have masked all the areas that we don't want any color on, and we're gonna give it a shot of this pure orange, so let's go. Okay, so I have let the orange color dry for a couple of minutes now, and I just want to show you a little thing here. I always remove this tape that is actually on the frame. It's designed not to leave any residue, but it does. So I try to remove it like this before anything gets stuck, especially if you leave it for a longer time. So then I always try to avoid to tape the frame as much as possible. If you can, wrap it in paper like I did here, because the tape can leave residue and we don't want that. So I'm gonna continue to unmask it here. I will leave most of the masking because I will build another step and another step here with other colors, so I still want the rest of the frame to be covered. So I'm just gonna remove the tape that is actually against the frame. Okay guys, so the frame is masked up once again. I've moved the masking a little bit further up the tubes, and the same thing in the back. So it's time for the Manila green to be applied. Okay, so the Manila green is now applied, and I will now remove the masking tape, and then I will let it dry for at least 24 hours before we apply the next cover. Okay, new day, something different. Right, no hair. Great. Okay, so the frame is masked up, and it's time for the Montana Gold sand this time. So let's go. Okay, final color, the brown. Let's go. The final color is on, the brown. And now we're gonna unwrap this whole thing and see what the result looks like. So starting to see some results here, really excited. Okay, so the frame is stripped from all the masking, and this is the result. Looking good. All right, so we're gonna lay down the graphics and logos before we hit it with the clear coat. So this is gonna be great. I'm really satisfied. First shot of paint on the fork. Orange. I'm not gonna apply the brown color. We still have some things left to do, but this will be the final color on the shade going upward toward the head tube that will unite the fork and the frame. So brown it is now. I have now masked the final part of the fork, and this is for putting on the last layer of paint. And as you can see, I have masked off the entire inside of the fork like this, and that's where I will spray now nice orange inside of the fork. Now I have left the orange parts because I don't want any sharp edges, so that's why I have masked out this. So I won't really spray the outside, but if it gets some paint there, it doesn't really matter. Okay, I've let the paint dry for a couple of minutes now, and it's time to unwrap the fork. And I'm really excited. It's gonna be really nice to look at this. There will be flaws. I will just guarantee you that, because this is quite a tough masking job for an amateur like me. So bear with me, but I'm still really excited. I think this is gonna be great. So hang with me. The fork is stripped of the masking, and here is the result. And I must say, I'm really excited. I think this turned out great. And I got really nice smooth transitions in between. I got the masking lines really straight and nice. You can barely see the transitions on the fork from the old and the new orange. You can see it in certain lights, since there is a little bit of there is a small edge there, but it won't be seen if you don't know what to look for. So this is over my own expectations, I must say. Really excited. As I told you earlier, testing is one of the most important things to do before you start your project. And I'm gonna do a little bit more testing because it's time for the graphics and the logos now. As you can see here, I've printed out some logos and graphics that I will use, and this is to get the sizing and the positioning right on the frame. Now, these are positive images, which means that I have printed out and I've removed the surroundings around these graphics. This means that when I tape these onto the frame, they will look like the graphics will look in the end. But when I will paint these onto the frame, I have to print them, and I will do negatives, which means that I will remove the actual letters and I will keep the surroundings, so that when I spray them, they will become stencils, and it's only the color that lands on the frame where there's text that will actually stick. And then I remove the surroundings from the frame and we have the text. So let's check it out. The test logos are on. As I said before, this leaves residue, so I won't let them sit for long. But this is pretty much the way I'm thinking about it. So that's the size, and then we have the mousse on the head tube. Yeah, I really like this. I chose an orange vinyl to use for this, but of course I will use the orange paint the same as the rest of the box. All right, I have just cut out the logos, and now I'm gonna separate them, I'm gonna weed them, and then I'm gonna apply the transfer tape so that we can get them onto the frame and then paint them. As I showed you earlier, I have already tested out where the logos and I've made measurement, and now I have rigged up the frame. It's ready. So I have printed out and cut out the stencils, and I will now apply them to the frame, and then I will spray them with the orange spray paint, and I will make really nice logos all over the frames. The frame is now masked and prepped for spraying the logos. So I have put the logos on, and these are negatives. I will use this orange, the same as I've used before. I don't know if you see it, it's the mousse in front, size of the frame, and yeah, it is gonna be really good. So the logos are painted, and I'm really excited about it. I'm gonna unwrap this now. So this is gonna be real good fun to see what the result became like. Now, what I've been talking about earlier is that even though I use vinyl that is meant for masking, it leaves residue. And I don't know if you can see it, but there are small, thin streams of residue on the frame. Even though this was only sitting on the frame for approximately half an hour, maybe even less. I can't stress it enough. Try to avoid to tape the frame. Try to avoid to have any adhesive tape or masking on the frame as much as you can, and just leave it there for a very short time because it will leave residue. Now I will use some silicone spray to remove the residues, but let's see how it goes. But I don't think it's gonna make any difference in the end, but you don't want it there. It's annoying and it's ugly, so just avoid it. All right, it's time for the final and probably the most difficult part of this paint job, and the moment that I've dreaded most of this. I haven't tried out the color. This is the first time I use this clear coat. I've only used 1K clear coats before. As I told you earlier, these are a little bit more expensive, so I've only tried it out with the cheaper 1K solutions. And also, spraying the bike means that we really need to get the clear coat to cover everything without runs, without making it too thick or too thin. Now, I will start from the top of the bike and the head tube and the top tube, and I will work my way downwards because I don't want any overspray. When I'm done down here, I don't want to spray up there because it won't make a nice result. So I would start from the top and I will work my way downwards. Now I have 2 cans and I will apply multiple layers. I haven't really decided yet how many, so we'll see how it goes. But I removed all the residue from the masking, and I have also cleaned and wiped off the entire frame to degrease it and to get any fingerprints or any dust away from the frame. So this is gonna be exciting. The first layer of clear coat is on, and it looks good. It gets this nice glossy look. I think you can see it in the light here. I'm now gonna let it dry for at least 24 hours. I'm gonna sand it down with like 1000 grit wet sandpaper just to cuff off the edges and any unsmoothness away from the frame. Then I will apply another layer of clear coat to make it really nice and durable. So let's let it dry, and I'll continue tomorrow. New day, and 24 hours has passed. The clear coat is dry, and I'm now gonna use the 1000 grit wet sandpaper to scuff off both edges as well as get rid of the orange peel that you maybe can see going on there. So that's what we're gonna do now. Okay, so I have now cuffed down the entire frame. It's really interesting because, as I said, this is the first time I'm using this kind of clear coat. I've only been using the 1K clear coats before, and I must say that it's a total difference in both the hardness and the durability of this clear coat. This one, there's no way I'm going through it into the color, while when I was doing the tests, I was afraid of going down into the color all the time, and I actually did in some edges, but this was not a problem at all. So I'm really impressed with this clear coat. So I'm now gonna wipe it down. I will try to find all those little spots that I missed out, and then also I'm going to do the fork course, which is over here. So yeah, the final shot of clear coat. Here we go. Okay guys, I have stepped outside to show the frame a little bit in better light. The frame is done, the paint job is done, and I must say that I'm really satisfied with the result. It's been a great joy doing this. This is the first frame I ever paint, so with that in mind, I'm very, very satisfied with the result. Both the frame and the fork have a very sketchy color scheme, so I'm really satisfied. There are some flaws, and I won't go into those details now. There's no need for that. I probably will buff it up a little bit to get rid of some of the left orange peel that's still there and stuff like that, but the actual paint job is done. Painting the frame has been a tough process, and I have really challenged myself. The scheme and the finish became very good, and using colors that are found in nature really contributes to the grabber feeling. This is the first, but definitely not the last frame I will paint. In the next part, I will assemble the bike and mount all the components. I will use both new and old parts, building it into a nice one-bike grabber bike. If you like this video, give it a good thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and share your thoughts in the comment section below. Cheers!